also recently completed my certification with Harvard, which focuses on supporting the SMEs in the startup as a business mentor. I love to work with SMEs, family-owned businesses, and early-stage organizations. So let me also now give the opportunity for my colleague, Reena, to introduce herself. Reena, over to you. Reena, you there?
Reena, you're on mute.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy to see the large crowd that is here. I also am a business coach and mentor. I have been working with SMEs and corporates. I work in the space of transformational leadership. I work with teams and make them the best version of themselves. I specialize in leadership training. I also work with startups to build their business model canvas, design thinking, and pivoting their business model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Reena. So before we start, I would like to know if on the chat, if you can mention how many of you are startups over here or early stage organizations, and how many of you are matured organizations. If you could just share it on the chat, it would be helpful for us. Just say startup or matured organization on the chat. The reason we're asking this question is because the business model canvas is something that can be used both for startups and for matured organization. People always misconstrue that the business model canvas is only for startups. It is not. It is also for mature organization, and it's a very powerful tool. So go ahead and share how many of you are startups and matured organization. It will really help us to tailor our examples as we speak. Okay, so I see a mix of startups and mature organization in the audience. Great, this is exactly what we wanted. So we will keep giving you examples for both of them. So now let's get started about with the webinar now, right? Now, building a business is quite challenging. You are juggling multiple balls at the same time. The first thing that you need to do is that you should have a target customer who love your product or your services. And this target customer must be ready to pay you an amount which is higher than the cost of production for you. So once you've got this, you also need to build reliable channels to reach your target customers, whether it is for marketing to them or selling to them or delivering your products or your services to them. You need to establish these reliable channels. And then all of these together should be scalable and sustainable. So as your business grows, all of these systems, processes, channels, monetary values, all of these should actually be scalable. Now, if you fail with even one of them, your business can be in jeopardy. And this is quite challenging. We understand that. I've been a business owner for about, when I was 17, I was a business owner. So that's 30 years ago. So I understand that is quite challenging. And that is the reason that you need a business model so that you are able to map these entire challenges and not just map it out, but also to be able to explore it, manage it, and plan for it. This is where the business model canvas comes into play. First of all, it's a visual aid for you to see your entire business model in one single page, and that's why it's so powerful. When I work with startups or middle or SMEs on their business plan, I always land up telling one thing: connect the dots. Your marketing should be connected to your sales. It should be connected to your finance. It should be connected to your customer segments. And this is always a challenge when I'm working with on business planning. But the business model canvas is actually helps you connect all of these dots. It is also a very strong storytelling aid. For example, it talks about who is the customer segment, what is the value that you're providing them, what relationships you're establishing with them, what channels are you going to use to reach out to them, what are your key activities as a business, what are the key resources you need to do those activities, who are your key partners, and ultimately, what is your cost structure, and what is your revenue stream. It gives you the entire picture in one single page, one single canvas as such. That's why it is so powerful. Today, we will be doing the basics of the business model canvas, and we'll tell you how to build this along with one case study, so that you're able to connect the theory to the practical. Okay, but the entire 9 blocks of the business model canvas is actually divided into 4 chunks, 4 areas. One is a focus on customers. Second one is the focus on the offering. The offering can be a product or a service. And we will talk about that. Since somebody told me that they are in the space of, they're a lawyer and they're very similar offerings. So even here, we'll talk about how you can distinguish your offerings. And then the next one is the infrastructure that you require to provide this offering to your customers. And at the bottom, you have the financial viability to be able to do a business which is profitable for you. Okay, 4 different segments. So let's start with the first one. We'll talk about the customer segments, and I'll have Reena talk to you about this. Reena, over to you. Reena, I think
You're on mute.
Thank you, Neetu. Sorry, and Neetu just gave a very high-level overview about the business model canvas. It is a tool. It is a tool that has 9 blocks, and it actually helps us to map the possibilities, the possible opportunities that will work or that will not. So I will now today talk to you about the right side of the block. The right side of the block is everything that actually interfaces with the customer. So it involves the value proposition, the customer relationships, the channels through which we reach the customer. So who is the customer? For who are we creating this value? And how will my product or service reach the customer? What will make them buy my product or service, and how will it reach them? So next slide. So if you look at the value, who are we creating this value for? Now, customer segment, it can be a group, it can be a person, it can be an organization who is willing to buy your product for a monetary value. So they have pains that your solution, which could be a product or a service, can remove. So how do we identify the customer segment? We need to know their persona. What do they think? What do they feel? So the psychographics are as important as the demographics. Now, if you look at the customer segments, you can have a category such as mass market, niche market, segmented, diversified, and multi-sided platforms. Mass markets are usually large group of customers with similar needs. We're looking at the electronics market. Niche market are those manufacturers who depend heavily on purchases from major automobile companies. And if you look at the segmented, let's take a look at a bank that will distinguish between customers who have assets worth 100,000 compared to those who have 500,000. And the diversified customer segment would be, let's take Amazon. They were in retail and now they've diversified into cloud, which is IT infrastructure. And finally, we come to the multi-sided platforms where you have 2 or more customer segments. Now, can I go to the next slide, please? Here, we're going to use Uber as an example to explain to you how this works. Now, if you take Uber, pre-Uber days, how was it? Pre-Uber days, we had to make a call, we had to wait for the driver, and it was very highly unpredictable, and we were not sure whether the fares that we are paying is high, and there's a lot of uncertainty about the whole thing. But once Uber came into the picture, you have what you call people who are in need of transportation, and there are drivers who have cars and who want to earn money out of it, and there are people who would like to moonlight as drivers. So there was a match. Next slide, Anu. So what's a value proposition? How would you talk about a value proposition? Value proposition is the reason why they buy from you, your product or your service. Are you cheaper? Are you unique? Is your product new? Is your product customizable? Is it easily accessible? So what is the value that you're actually delivering to the customer? And how is it going to solve the customer's problem? So, and what is it the customer needs that your value proposition is going to address? So I'll give you an example. Like if you look at a luxury car, if you think about BMW, if you're looking at a car for its performance, you go for a Maruti because of its mileage. So it is all about pain points, providing solutions, and the willingness to pay.
Can we request Reena to please mute yourself?
Next slide.
Okay, I just want to add something here, if you don't mind, Reena.
Sure.
For those of you who are in the product or services where you feel that you're providing the same services or the product which your competitors are providing, this is where you distinguish yourself. You create a feature, a factor about yourself which your competitors is not providing. And you can look at either, we've given you some examples: newness, performance, customization, cost reduction, brand safety, any of these things, accessibility, convenience, things combined with your services. Could you please mute everybody? I have somebody who's not muted.
Yeah, now they're muted.
Okay,
yeah.
So your value proposition, you need to really think deep, because this is where you distinguish yourself from the competitors. And everybody who's providing the same services can also use the value. Somebody can use accessibility as a distinguishing factor. Somebody can use customization as a distinguishing factor. So there are so many different ways in which you can create a value proposition which your competitors are not providing. And that could be the one which is going to make you stand out in front of amongst all the crowd. Back to you, Reena. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
So if you look at the value proposition, now for the rider, there is no more waiting. They can book the destination on the app. They use the app. They don't have to make phone calls. Predictable, convenient, and they know exactly how much they have to pay for it. If you look at the drivers, they have a pool of customers. They have flexible working hours, no boss, they can moonlight. And also there is no upfront investment in joining. And there is also insurance coverage when they're driving. So if you look at it, there are two customer segments here. You have drivers and riders, and both benefit from this. Now let's look at the channels. So it's very important to pick the right channel. How will the customer come to us? How do we know? How will the customer know about us? How do they know about our solution, our services? Is it going to be an online product? Is it a physical store? Is it going to be door-to-door? Or is it a social media platform? Or do you have a website? So all the touch points from where they touch, where the customer actually is getting to know about our product, everything is a channel. So it is, even if the customer is Googling, that is a touch point. So how they come to know about us, and how they will, the entire the phase that they go through, like becoming aware, then evaluating. There will be competitors. What is so niche about our product that they will want to buy our product? Then finally they purchase it. After purchasing, either they can purchase it off the store or it's delivered, and then there is after the sales service. So the channels are pretty straightforward. And if you look at Uber, it is very clear. The channels are, you have a web and mobile app from the app stores. Then you have word of mouth, and you have Uber's Facebook page. You have Google Ads, and also you have customer support channels which are automated and human. And sales. Then they're using Salesforce as a CRM tool. Now, when you're looking at channels, it is very, very important that that once you retain that, once you acquire the customer, Then comes the next step where you are actually trying to think about how can you maintain this relationship. Acquisition is the first step. That is easy, but retaining the customer, ensuring that the customer remains with you is also it's a very challenging job because there are so many competitors. So, and every customer segment will have a different relationship. And there is the customer relationship, there would be, you can have different levels of relationship. For example, you can have a personal assistance, or you can have personal assistance is where a relationship manager in the bank, that is a personal assistance. And you can have automated service, you can have self-service, you can have communities. For example, there was a pharmaceutical giant, GlaxoSmithKline, who actually was trying to test a weight loss drug. And so they built a relationship with their customers. Similarly, if you look at YouTube, they actually invite customers to create content. So the most important aspect of this is to continue to retain the relationship so that there is a steady flow of revenue coming in. Acquisition is good, retention is important, and also not only is retention important, you also can use customer relations for referrals so that they talk to other customers about you, and then you are able to acquire more customers. Coming to Uber, if you look at it, they have a very good feedback rating system, both for the driver and the rider, which is very fair. And they use social media to acquire and retain riders. And what is very, very comfortable for both the driver and the rider is that there is transparency in the pricing, and also the timing. You know exactly when the ride will arrive. And there's a lot of confidentiality because your numbers are masked. If you want to call the Uber driver, you actually call through another number. So you feel secure about the privacy aspect of it. And they also offer a lot of automated service, and they give a lot of discounts trying to retain the customers. So then now comes the most important part. All the work that we're doing for the right side is preparing for this. It is to get the revenue streams. Now, revenue streams, we have to look at whether it's going to be a one-time transaction or whether it's recurring revenues. In addition to that, you can have a subscription model, you can have affiliation, commissions. So end of the day, it is what are they willing to pay and how are they willing to pay? So if you look at Uber, you have a ride commission. You also have subscription models. You have premium accounts, and you know that there is a surge pricing when there's a great demand for rides. And you also have Uber Eats. So they have multiple revenue streams. They try to add more revenue in this business model. Neetu, any questions? Anyone?
So till now, we've finished only the customers portion of it. So customers and the value proposition portion of the business model canvas. Does anybody here have any questions regarding this segment? Are there any questions in the chat?
I don't see any questions.
Yeah, not yet, Neetu.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
No, I think it's very clear. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Subhash. Thank you for that. So now let's move on to, we've spoken about the customer segmentation and the value proposition segment, but let's look at the business side of the business canvas now. So on the business side, the first thing that we have is the key activities. So very simply said, what activities do you need to do as an organization? Do you need to focus upon to ensure that the value proposition that you've identified actually reaches the target segments which you have identified through the channels which you have designed, right? And ultimately, all of these should be able to help you earn more revenues. So now you can have different types of key activities. The first one, of course, is the production. Production will apply for both products and services. These are all the activities which relate to designing, making, and delivering your product or your service to the customer. The other business model could be around the platform or the network. This is where the business focus on managing the platform. Uber is an example of the platform. Amazon is an example of the platform. YouTube is an example of the platform. So they're focusing only on building that platform, and the platform is the one which is earning revenues for them and connecting all the dots for them. The next one is the problem solving. Problem solving business model is typically meant very common amongst the service providers. So a lawyer is solving a problem for a customer, a business mentor or a coach solving a problem for a customer, a dentist is solving a problem for the customer. So problem solving is here. We're looking at how do we address the challenges of the customer as such. So these are the three different broad business models that you can have under your key activities. Now, if you see Uber's key activity, very interesting, because though Uber is a cab services, that is not the key activity. The key activity, the Uber as an organization is focusing on developing the mobile and the web app. They are focusing on recruiting drivers, because without the drivers, they will not be able to provide these services. They are focusing on marketing to the customers, to the riders, so that more and more of them use their products, right? They're focusing on operational excellence. That means how can they remove friction? How can they, for example, remove negative experiences? How can they their geolocation become more and more accurate? They're focusing on how do they keep on improving that, right? And of course, they're focusing on how they can expand either geographically or new products wise. So if you see right now, if you see the Uber options, if you see, they have both not just the cab ride, but also rentals, intercity, moto, auto, and also package delivery. It started out now. I actually saw this and I was quite surprised that they've already added all of these as the key activities now within Uber. Notice that the cab sharing is not their activity. To enable cab sharing, they're doing all of those things, and these are the things that Uber is focusing upon. Okay. Now, the next thing is, what are the resources that you require to make sure that the value proposition reaches your customer segments and they are able to maintain those relationships, and you're also earning the revenues. So your resources can be divided into four segments. One is the physical, which is the old way of doing business. It's a physical premises, your computers, all your physical assets as such. Then you've got human, which is where you're talking about especially services, whether it is the software engineers, whether it is your team of professionals, of chartered accountants, of lawyers who are working with you, etc. That's the human factor that comes in. Then you've got your intellectual, which is your IP. Okay, so the knowledge which your people have, the customer data that you gather over a period of time, your design, your brand, all of these are intellectual properties today, and they are part of your balance sheet. These are resources that you can also use to ensure that your revenues also increase. And then, of course, in the end, we've got financials. Finance does not just mean financials to run your business, but a lot of organizations, a lot of business models require you to have a line of credit. They require you to have what do you say, this cash lines of credit, stock options for your employees. So all of these is your financial that you're going to be looking into, another key resources piece of it. So Uber's key resources is, again, their capabilities of their app and the algorithms that they're using to ensure that they give a customized experience to the riders. Their engineering team is their IP, right? The data assets, that, and this is most difficult for people, and it actually creates competitive barriers for new people, new organizations to join in, because Uber by now has a lot of data, your data and the driver's data, which is captured. This is how today Uber can actually give the driver which is ending its shift. He can make a point of that, make a note of that, and Uber will now give them rides which is going towards the direction of their home. All that is possible because of the data assets that they have captured. And then network effects between drivers and riders. Interestingly, Uber keeps talking about this as being one of the key resources and one of the competitive advantages that they have compared to other markets is the network effort between riders and drivers. And of course, the brand value of Uber itself. Now, not every activity which is required for your business, you may not be doing all of those activities. There are some activities which you want to partner with somebody else because they have a core expertise in that. This is where you identify your key partners. It's very important to identify key partners who will actually align with your entire business model. And I'm sure many of us have experienced this, right? We've got partners, but they're not active. They're not contributing towards the growth of the business. This is because of the misalignment over here. Now you can have key partners for, between non-competitors or co-opetition. That is, people who are competitors, but they still try to co-op together. Okay, Blu-ray is a good example of that. Joint ventures to address new businesses, new geographies. Tata, for example, there's a lot of joint ventures with the international airlines. We've got Vistara, we've got, I think, which is the other one, there's a low-cost one. So all of these are actually examples of the joint ventures. And there are different reasons why you would want to partner with somebody. One is optimizing and the economy of scales. Other one is to reduce your risk and reduction and uncertainty. And lastly, if you want to acquire certain resources. So today, if you see a lot of these last mile delivery is actually outsourced to companies like Shadowfox. Nobody has a whole slew of delivery guys. They just outsource the business. That Shadowfox, company like Shadowfox becomes the partner to Swiggy's and Ola's and all the Swiggy's and Zeptos, etc. Right, for the last mile delivery. That's an example of key partners. For Uber, the driver is a key partner, because again, without the driver, they will not be able to sustain, right? They also have very smartly created partnership with airports and hotels and real estate properties. If you see today, if you go to an app, if you're booking your tickets, even in the airlines on Make My Trip, etc., you can also book a cab. You can also connect it to Uber, etc. So that's a good competitive barrier that they have created. Okay, they also need to be key partners with the local government and communities so that to ensure that they meet with compliances and laws. For example, in India, private vehicles cannot be used as a cab, but it can be used in the US. So all of these alliances, these laws have to be complied. They have to you can only do by having partnerships with the local governments. And tech partnership. Google Maps is a perfect example. Uber did not go ahead and create and sit and develop their own maps. They partnered with Google Maps and to ensure that the drivers and the riders are already using a tool which they are familiar with. It's a very strong example of Google Maps, of partnership. Now, all of these is going to cost you something, right? And this is where you start evaluating your cost structures. Now, again, you can have two types of business models. One is driven by cost. That means you're focusing on ensuring that you have a very lean business model and ensuring that your prices are very economic, and that is and their entire business is driven by this. For example, a lot of the airlines that we know today are driven by cost. They keep their service offerings very, very limited to ensure that the cost is also limited. And on the other hand of the spectrum is driven by value. These are organizations who are focusing on ensuring that they give the best experience to the customers, irrespective of the cost of it. So these are your 5-star hotels is an example of business models which are driven by value. So if you just compare Oyo rooms driven by cost and your 5-star hotels driven by value. So you can have two different business models in the same segment as such. And of course, you're looking at what kind of, you're looking at fixed costs, variable costs, economies of scale, economies of scope, all of these contribute towards your cost structure decisions. Now look at Uber. Uber has a very high cost of revenue. That means the revenues it earns comes at a very high cost for them. They have to consider insurance expenses, credit card processing fees, the hosting their data, mobile devices, service expenses is very, very high for them, right? At the same time, sales and marketing, because as and when competition increases, they have to have higher expenses on investments in sales and marketing. Then, of course, their mobile development, it's an ongoing development cost for them. Of course, with salaries coming in, product development coming in, and maintenance of the platform, of course, and general and admin expenses. Legal settlements, and as of now, it's very interesting because Uber has one of the highest legal cost structures, considering the number of cases that they have got against them. So that actually has become a huge factor for them, impacting the cost for them. So now back to you, Reena. Reena, you're there?
Still on mute.
Thank you, Neetu. That was very well explained. So now we're going to give you a snapshot of what Neetu and I were just talking about. The value proposition sits right in the center. On the right side, you have everything that is connected with the customer, which is the customer segment, the customer relationships, the channels, and the revenue streams. And then when you go to the left side, you see all the activities that we need to get done, this infrastructure to ensure that we are able to deliver the value proposition. And there's a cost structure to it. There's one point that I wanted to say is, whenever you have a key partner, the key partner shouldn't be somebody who actually undermines your value proposition. That is very important. So it could be a competitor, but the value proposition should not be eroded at any cost. Thank you, Neetu. Over to you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Reena. I think I missed that out. It's a very important point that the key partner has to align with your value proposition, and it should rather help. They should help in increasing your revenue rather than having a negative impact on your revenue. Also, okay. Now, any questions before we move on to the next segment? Any questions here for anybody? No questions? This is either very simple and clean, or it's Reena and me have managed to completely confuse you. Which one is it?
Now, I wanted to know, how do you know what is the frequency of looking back at your business model and reviewing it?
Very good question, Subhashini. So, Reena, would you want to take that?
Yes. If it's a startup, we ask them to revisit their business model canvas every 3 months. If it is a mature organization, we advise them to do it every 6 months. Because when you're a startup, everything is very dynamic. So, things keep changing, and, your partners, your customer segments. A mature organization usually only has to do it once every 6 months. This has been my experience. Neetu, would you like to add to it?
Yes. So while that is correct when it's a timeline, it's also you need to understand that if there is a change in any of these 9 blocks, okay, if the customer behavior has changed, if there is a new channel in which you can explore to connect with your customer, if there's a new value proposition that you have defined that you can give your customers, if there is a new partner that you're bringing in, if there is a new revenue stream that's opened up for you, there's a new cost that's come in, any of these things changes, go back to your business model, connect all the dots using this, irrespective of the time. Okay, so you have to keep ensuring that all of these speak to each other continuously. So any one change that you do in this, you have to go back and check with the business model canvas. I'll actually give you an example of Uber when I'm doing this. Any other questions?
There's a question on
Yeah,
chat.
there is.
Yeah. Can you clarify customer segments once more, please?
Sure. Okay. Now, if you see, when we speak about the business model canvas, we start with the customer segment. I mean, even when you're telling the story of your business, you start talking about which customer segments are you supporting, catering with your services, right? Now, every business can have more than one customer segment. The customer segments are typically people whom you want to target for your business. These are the segments who will immediately relate to what your product does for them. It's also the customer segments are the ones which are most profitable for you. So you define, this is the customer segment that I am going to talk to. Now, most often when I speak about customer segments to organizations, people tell me my customer segment is, let's say, an SME who is 50 plus employees and has, let's say, is currently managing our HR through Excel sheets. That's an example of what people are talking about, the customer segments, right? In the business model canvas, like Reena said, we get into a lot more detail. We talk about why are they customers? Why do they want to do business with you, right? So somebody who's currently using our HR, who's using an Excel sheet to manage their HR, is struggling because of the limitations of Excel, and they have to do every report manually. They want more live data immediately. So I think that is a segment. That's the customer pain area. Reena said, remember, your customer persona and their pain area. You talk more than just the demographic. Demographics is age, geography, gender, etc. That's just, but beyond that, psychographics. Psychographics means what is their actual pain area? Why would they want to buy from you instead of your competitor? Or why would they want to buy your services instead of doing it by themselves? So you need to actually understand all of those things and define that in your customer segments. You can have more than one customer segment, like I said. Now, in the Uber example, they've got 2 customer segments. So for each customer segment, what is the relationship that has to be there? What is the value proposition for that? What are the key activities for each segment? Who are your key partners? So everything gets connected from that. So with the drivers, there's a different value proposition. For the riders, it's a different value proposition. The channels that you're going to use for each of these will be separate. The relationship that you're going to establish with them is separate. The revenue streams, you may also be separate. The key activities that you will be doing there will also may be different. So everything around the customer segments, if you see the entire business model stems from your customer segment. If you get this right, everything else will fall in place. If we get this wrong, everything will fall down. That's a dominoes effect. I hope
has your question been answered? Because your question was, I didn't understand how drivers and riders are customer segments. Has that question been answered, or you still want some clarification from Neetu or Reena?
Neetu just said that they are both customer segments because the drivers are one part of the customer segment. The riders are the other. So she just answered the question just before you asked. Now, I wanted to answer a question. I think Ms. Rakshit had asked a question about when entrepreneurs initiate the startup, at what stage the need of designing the business model tool arises. I would recommend that even before you start thinking of a startup, you have an idea. You're talking about an idea. You need to validate that idea. Is that idea viable? So that is when you create you put the canvas, you put the poster out there on the wall, and you start looking at your customer segments. And then you need to see who are your customer segments. Like we mentioned before, you need to look at the demographics and the psychographics. Will there be customers who are interested in my product? Are they willing to pay a price? Am I actually solving a problem? So we come back to that. Neetu, would you like to add to what I said?
Yes. So we have, let me show you something which may help you out with this. Just give me a moment.
Yeah.
For startups, we have something called the, just give me a moment, I can pull that out.
Reena ma'am, can you please also mention that how the validation can be done?
Sure. Now, if you see this screen, this is called the Lean Canvas. The Lean Canvas is the adaptation of the business model canvas and specifically meant for startups. Here, what they have done is they have replaced some of the blocks with problem, solution, key metric, and unique value proposition. That is a value proposition which is unique compared to the others, right? So you can use this because you may not have relationships, you may not already have relationships, you may not have partners, etc. right now. At an ideation stage, you use this format of the business model canvas to define your business and experiment, like Reena said, validate. So if this is the problem I am solving to this customer, this is the solution that I'm giving them. Is it connecting? How am I going to reach the customer segments? What is the advantage that I have against the competitors who are already there? What is the unique value proposition I'm talking about, which others are not already giving? So you can actually use this version of the BMC when you're a startup at the ideation stage, and literally every time you think about something new for your business, okay, you think about a new news channel, new cost structure, keep going back to this. It's a live document. You keep going back to doing that. Okay.
And also, I would like to add, you talked about unique value proposition. How do you validate it? Is your product better because it's cheaper? Is it customizable? Is the quality better? There are so many aspects to it. So you need to look at what is so unique about your product that your customer would just leave the competitors and come back to get your product. So there will always be something that is very unique. You need to figure that out, and that is why we say you have to ideate. You need to brainstorm, figure out what are the competitors. You need to do market research. You just can't have an idea and then go to the business model canvas. You need to do research. You need to know what the competitors are doing. Then you need to know what are your niche areas, what are your strengths, and then you need to map. So that is how it works. It is very, very interesting activity actually to ideate.
In fact, Reena and me, we do this. We do this separate mentoring where we actually focus on only two blocks, like the customer segment and the value proposition. We just work only on that for 1 week before we move on to the next one, etc. So each of these, if you see segment, each of these blocks are not something that you just randomly put into place. It is backed with a lot of research that you do, a lot of insight that you gather, and only then you add up all. You actually put. It's a culmination. The business model canvas is a culmination of all the thoughts that you have gone through, right? And if you're interested, we will be talking about how we have this group mentoring program where we actually work on each of these blocks on a weekly basis.
Vamsi.
And can
Vamsi, we promised to the client that day.
Yeah, what was your question? There was a question I couldn't hear.
Yes.
like I was asking that can
No,
we,
it is just a 30-second video, Vamsi. One
Sindhuja,
testimonial
can you
and
please
the
mute
upcoming of
yourself?
course. So you can just add one slide in the beginning. You want to stay healthy or something.
Can somebody just please mute Sindhuja?
yeah, so I was asking that can we use the prototyping over here?
Yes, even your prototyping, you can use it for this, right?
Okay.
So in fact, many a time the prototype is what comes out of doing this exercise, and also you can do it before prototyping and after prototyping. So if you do it before prototyping, you're like you're seeing all the dots are actually getting connected or not, right? Based on this, on what you've defined. Or after you've created a prototyping, you can validate it by again using the business model canvas. Have I done this? Is my if this is what I have developed, is it connecting all these dots? It also shows you where are the gaps. Okay.
And my another question is also there in the.
Go ahead, Rakshan.
My another question is also there in the chat time.
What's it there in the chat? I'm sorry, can somebody read it out for me?
Yes.
What is the question? Can you just say it here? So I'm not able to find the chat.
Does the
question.
business strategy be designed based on the business model? Is that the question, Rakshit?
Yes, yes, yes.
Does the business strategy have to be designed based on the business model?
Okay, thank you for that question. The business strategy is actually, if you see the business model canvas, is a representation of your business strategy. Okay, these you have, if you see this, these are all the this is okay. This is just the basics right now, guys. There is another level where we talk about external factors which impact your business model. We will not be covering that in today's webinar, but all of that together define your business strategy. This is a representation of that. So when you are pitching your business to an investor, a customer, or anybody, you can actually share your entire business strategy like this in one single page using the BMC model.
Okay, so you mean to say like business strategies first developed, based on that the model is prepared.
Well, it can happen both the ways.
Okay.
You can use, so if you are developing a business strategy, you put up this model, this canvas over here. We will tell you how. So this it's a very great physical activity to do. Okay, create a poster out of it, put it on the wall, use post-its, and say, okay, before you start creating the business strategy, say, you know what, this is the customer segments I'm going to address. This is the revenue I'm expecting from them. This is the value proposition I'm offering. So you can actually put the whole picture together like this over here, and then you see you will be able to identify the gaps, and then use that to put together your entire strategy. You can do it that way. Or if you already have built your business strategy by now, you can actually put them together in this format and see if every item is connected to the other item. Every block is connected to the other blocks. So
Okay,
you can use
all
it
right.
both the ways.
Okay, thank you.
But a good question. Thank you for asking that. Anybody else? Okay, so let's quickly move to the next one. Now, I'm going to tell you about how to, now that you've built a business model canvas, how do you actually use some of the example questions with that? Okay, now look at the Uber example. Uber defined the customer segments as drivers and riders. But when they speak about customer relationship, everything is aimed towards the rider. The driver was actually ignored, because of which drivers started leaving them. You've heard, I think if you're all commuters, you know this, right? Drivers were unhappy and they started leaving them. And then Uber had to actually invest in a hiring agency who would help them hire drivers, right? And because and why was this? Because actually the value proposition to the drivers had reduced, because they had increased the commission. They have bought in all kinds of model space, so like, you know, you have to finish so many number of rides for actually to earn your commission, etc., right? Even the search prices initially were not shared with their drivers. There's a lot of unhappiness, dissatisfaction with the drivers. Now, because of this, the number of drivers reduced on the road, and it impacted the revenue streams. That's when Uber got up to the realized that they have a problem, and they had to go and change all of these things. So if they had actually done this exercise before they rolled out before the problem actually occurred, they would have seen that the customer relationship did not talk about the driver's relationship at all. There's another, and of course, all of this, so because the revenues reduced down, people were not using Uber, started using other options like Ola. They had to spend more money on advertising, because of which the cost structure also increases. So this is another example where the Indian the Indian consumer said, I wanted more than one way to use to pay the drivers. Okay, so they wanted UPI, they wanted cash options. So when Uber actually listened to them, so that they are able to make the customers happy, now that increased their resource. They had to now go back and redesign some of the features in their app. It's not available actually in international markets. Specifically for India, they had to go back and do that. So they had to bring in other resources, or put in more resources to be able to add this feature. At the same time, this also increases their cost structure. And all of this together is what is going to increase their revenue models also. So if you see, it is not just about it's not just about a one-time activity. Every time something like here, they added a new feature, they had to go back and look at the entire business model, because in all of these things I've added the cost. They have to see how can they make up in the revenues. So this is an example of how you use a business model canvas on an ongoing basis. Okay, so now what is the next step for you? So next step for you, like I said, is you can plot the canvas on a poster, do a physical activity with your team members, put the poster on the wall and sketch out your business models by just putting post-its. Okay, and see, you can actually iterate. If you have 2-3 different business models, you don't know which one to use, you create one canvas for each business model and put each of those canvas on the wall of your office and go through them and see which one of them is giving you the best results, which of them is more controllable, either in terms of partnerships, relationships, channels, revenue stream, cost structure, etc. So that can actually become a comparison between two or three different business models also for you. So for those of you who are interested, we will be sharing a PDF format of this in the WhatsApp group. So make sure that you are a part of the WhatsApp group. Okay, what are the next steps now? For if anybody of you needs help to create your business model canvas, you can write to me at neetu@hrpros.in. Reena and me provide 2 different types of help. We have a group mentoring where we will bring together a couple of you and help you build your business model canvas. If anybody's interested on a one-to-one for your business itself, we can also work along with you. So make a note of this and you can reach out to us over here. Now with that, we are wrapping this up. I would like to take some of your feedback. What is your key learnings today? In the format is, I used to think like this before the webinar, and now this is what I think. I would love to get your feedback around this in this manner. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And I would ask you all to quickly share. What was it that you were thinking before, and what is it that you are now thinking after doing the webinar? Anybody? Any thoughts?
Could we also have all of you back on video so we can just take a look at you even as we sort of come to the close to the session?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. And please keep putting into the chat.
Any new learnings? Hey, Bunnies, hi, how are you doing? Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, thank you.
Bunnies, anything that you want to talk about any thoughts that came into your mind after understanding about the business model canvas?
Yeah, well, I took some screenshots of your of the business model canvas, the lean canvas. I hope that's not a copyright infringement, but
No,
the other being that it's normal to keep adjusting it especially if you're a startup and as your business grows and adjusts. So yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, Bunnies. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Selena, would you want to share? You're on mute, Selena.
Neetu and Reena, fantastic session. It's about, I've been in the business for the last 18 years, but a lot of things when you look at it as to how often do you revisit your business plan when even there is a change in the one aspect of it. That's one thing which really is very good for me to think about because it's very dynamic.
Yes.
Industry is dynamic and a lot of parameters are dynamic and very nice. And I learned a lot today.
Thank you for that, Selena. Thank you. Abdul Razak, would you want to share something?
The Lean Canvas was something that is new for me. I've been using BMC for quite some time with a few clients of mine. But now since it's been cut down to size, probably, that's a better option for me to use for the startups basically, rather than getting into the entire parameters of what is included in the actual BMC.
Correct.
Customization is the key.
Thank you, Abdul. Yes, the lean canvas actually makes more sense for a startup, especially if they are still in the ideating stage or they still haven't got their first set of customers, right? So before their MVP, when they're building their MVP, that makes a great option there. Thank you for that.
Sindhuja Verma has mentioned the lean canvas startups, a simple and powerful tool. That's my key takeaway. I don't know which Sindhuja Verma, there are quite a few of them on the call.
Yes. Okay, Sudhir? Sudhir Murmu, would you want to share?
CK, that's the original Sindhuja.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all the clones, right?
Yeah.
Sudhir, would you want to share what is your experience been? What's your learning? Sudhir Murmu, you're on mute.
You're still on mute, Sudhir.
Okay, so while Sudhir figures it out, Murthy. Murthy GSR.
Thank you, I'm fine.
Okay.
In the meantime, Rakshit has mentioned that session was useful, but looking forward to do it practically to gain pragmatic insights. I think when you start doing it is when you will face the challenges. So please stay active on the WhatsApp group so that, whatever doubts you're having while you're getting active can be clarified there.
Okay, great. So with that, we will just be wrapping it up. I'm going to just talk about, we are going to continue our knowledge share series. In the month of January, we have Unleashing Your Strengths. This is based on the Strengths Finder. So make sure that you be a part of it. It is meant for leaderships and team managers. You also have a special session coming only on manufacturing excellence, the topic being inseparable business growth drivers. So these are the two webinars I'm going to have in January. And if anybody wants to be in touch with Reena or with me, you have our email IDs over there and our LinkedIn profiles also. So feel free to follow us. All our LinkedIn and our YouTube channels will have all our upcoming webinars. Make sure that you are subscribing for them so that you can keep getting information about our upcoming webinars. In the end, also for the ones who are interested in joining the Indian Women Network, I'm sharing the membership queries slide once again. Please feel free to reach out to Gracie or Julian and to help you in your membership details. So with that, we are wrapping up this session. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience.
Any feedback that you would like to share from the CII IWN group in terms of the utility of this program as a starting point? Yeah.
So, IWN is targeting, one of the key target groups is women entrepreneurs. A big chunk of them are startups. And I can see Nisari and a couple of names from the IWN pool. They are themselves entrepreneurs, and I'm sure they would have taken huge value from this session. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Milita. Thank you so much for that.
Anybody else would like to share feedback? Anybody else would like to?
I think, I think it's been a very productive session, because in a very short while, like just about 60 minutes, I think the two of you have kind of given, us as an audience, an overview of, what is possible. And I think the simplicity of it in a way, like a single page kind of thing, I think is also what is very attractive, rather than very complex business models and so on and so forth. And I think in a way, I think what it helps each one of us to do is to focus on the basics, and see the connect and sort of connect the dots. And I think that's what is really productive about this. But like what someone just now said, I think for everybody, it's like, from theory to practice, when you get into the practice, that's when you really see how it is actually productive, number one. And number two is, I think that there are some answers that entrepreneurs or startups or even experienced people may not have had because they haven't thought about it in the past. So in that sense, I think it's a very good productivity as well as a thought-provoking tool to make sure that you connect all the dots.
Thanks for that, Vish. We actually, I do a separate session only on customer segments. It's like a 2-hour webinar. I'm not a webinar, it's a master class. After which, people come back and present the customer segments to me. It's another 2 to 3 hours, depending on the audience size. Only that one block, we spend so much of time.
Yes.
Then
yes.
on the value proposition itself, we spend, because like somebody was saying, a value proposition is always most difficult because people say that I do this, but, talking about how they're different from competitors and why should the customer, connecting the customer segment to the value proposition. Is the customer finding it as a value proposition? You are offering it, but if the customer is not feeling it's a value proposition, so then, that's where it becomes a weak value proposition. So we actually spend just 2-3 hours focusing only on the value proposition, helping customers build that. So each block actually takes a couple of hours. We just but then the value is when you put them all together like this, you will be able to find out what are the gaps in your entire strategy. Okay, so with that, I think we are good. Anybody has any other question? We are happy to answer that. Please be active on the WhatsApp group, and we are going to be trying and sharing some more details over there, so which you can use. I'll also be sharing the PDF format of the business model canvas.
We'll also be sharing the YouTube recording of this.
The YouTube recording will also be there. Yes. Okay, so with that, we are done. Thank you so much today. I hope it was useful for you, and we shall see you in the next webinar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HR pros can probably stay on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can stop the recording.
Yeah, we can stop the recording now. Both the recording and the live.
Even the live can stop.